Hello everyone, my name is Mark. On the internet, my ID is lulalala. I like Futaba channel and Forchan, so my hobby project is to make one using Rails. Let me know if you like that too. As you may know, the Rails team is working on version 6.1 right now. Today I want to introduce you to one particular change on ActiveModel validation errors. Let's briefly start by explaining what that is. If we have a book record, we can call book.valid on that. Sometimes it will fail and return false. And when that happens, usually I just go and see what's the reason behind the failure. The book.errors is where validation error information is stored. Up until Rails 6.0, the errors interface looks like this. It contains a hash called messages, storing messages per attribute. It also contains a hash called details, storing information of the error per attribute. When validation fails, it would insert the message into the message hash, and then insert the error details into the details hash. So the information exists across two different places. If I want to know the details of one hash, can I do that? Yes, it is possible 99% of the time, but it's tedious. You have to get the array index first, and then use that index to look up the details hash. And for the 1% of the time, you cannot do that, because messages and details are not always a one-to-one mapping. For example, someone can just be lazy and append the error messages directly into the hash. Or Rails can also do weird things. For example, it calls unique when importing errors from associations. In Rails 6.1, all this will change. How? We can apply object-oriented design. Now one error is one object. We can initialize the error object. Then we can access its message and access its forMessage method. And lastly, we can access the details hash. Now in 6.1, book.errors contains an array of these error objects instead. As with all big changes, there will be deprecations and breaking changes which requires updates. I will list the most important things below. So how do we upgrade? Let's look at how we can iterate through these errors. In the past, error behaves like a hash, and we iterate as such. We want to deprecate this. Instead, please switch to use the single arity enumerator. Notice the difference in the number of parameters. If there is only one parameter, then it will yield the error objects instead. This applies to most of the enumerable methods, which takes a block. Also, when you call first, you will also return the first error objects too. Now it comes to the most important rule. Don't modify the messages or the details hash directly. This is because they are no longer the single source of truth. In the past, you can add errors by appending messages directly to the hash, or you can clear the hash altogether. But this will be a big no-no in Rails 6.1. because it will always be dynamically generated. It is not where the source of truth is. So doing this would now trigger a deprecation warning. Instead, always use the provided interface, such as add method, or the standard enumeration methods. Manipulating the following will have no effect. You can't manipulate errors like a hash. and you cannot manipulate the hash returned by the messages method. Lastly, you cannot manipulate the hash returned by the details method either. Because now we have arrays of errors instead of hashes of errors, the interface will need to be changed from a hash-like interface to the new array-like interface. Several hash-like interface methods will be deprecated and removed. These include the slice method, the values method, and the keys method. The toH method will also be removed, but can be replaced by the toHash method. We also plan to remove the toXML method. We thought in the current age of JSON, XML is less relevant. But if you are actually still using toXML, please let me know. We have talked about deprecations, and now we can talk about the new things. What are the benefits of this change? First, enumeration is easier. All the enumeration methods can be used now. With arrow objects array, we can easily filter and then re-render the messages. For example, if my PM asks me one thing, please show all the error messages in full, except the too cool error. It's a reasonable request, right? But is it easy to do? It is more complicated than I expected. However, with Rails 6.1, it can just be a 3-line change. To make filtering even easier, a new where method is implemented. By giving the conditions, it will return the matching errors. One thing to note is that this where method has a different method signature to the database where queries. It is similar to the errors.add method. By using where method, you can filter by the attribute name, or the attribute name plus the error type, and lastly, attribute name plus the error type plus the details condition. The delete method will also have finer granularities too, so similar to where, now in delete you can specify the type of error you want to delete, or the matching details which you want. By having an error as an object, we can reference one error inside another error too. We can nest errors together. This is extremely useful when we want to validate associations. The errors can reference its associations error, providing more information to the developers. Lastly, it will be easier to extend or change the behavior of the validation errors interface now. You can create new gems to monkey patch the error class in order to add new functionalities. As a conclusion, the benefits of error objects are the information are in one place. It eliminates the old issue of message details is not one-to-one. It's easier to enumerate and it's also extensible. As I mentioned earlier, many things are changed, so please try it out. Now there is still time to give suggestions and make changes before everything is finalized in Rails 6.1. If you think things can be improved, please open an issue on the Rails project. Thank you.